bankers have flagged a series of suspicious transactions, and these transactions involve individuals who were part of the notorious Trump Tower meeting prior to the 2016 election. Now, this is based on documents that BuzzFeed News obtained, and the details of these documents show that there could be some serious money laundering involved. And we're gonna give you the details. You can decide for yourself, but it does appear that they are investigating these transactions. And so eventually we will have an answer. Now, secret documents were revealed, previously undisclosed. Now, there are a web of financial transactions among some of the planners and participants who moved money from Russia and Switzerland to the British Virgin Islands, Bangkok, and a small office park in New Jersey. Documents show that Aras Agalarov, a billionaire real estate developer close to both Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump, is at the center of this vast network, and how he used accounts overseas to filter money to himself, his son, and at least 2 people who attended the Trump Tower meeting. So investigators are focused on 2 bursts of transactions that bank examiners deem suspicious, one that happened a short time after the meeting and another immediately after the November 2016 presidential election. So I'm gonna give you the details of those transactions, how that money was transferred from one bank to another, one country to another. But first, Cenk, do you wanna jump in?
Yeah, so Rob Goldstone sets up this Trump Tower meeting. He's the one that famously sent the email to Donald Trump Jr. saying, hey, listen, these are Russian government guys, and it said, quote, part of Russia and its government support for Mr. Trump. Donald Trump Jr. famously responds, I love it, sets up the meeting. So Goldstone's gonna be important because eventually some of the money winds up in his bank account. He's the one that set up the meeting for the Russians with Trump. So the fact that the money transfers happened, and Anna will give you the details here, shortly after the Trump Tower meeting, and then shortly after Donald Trump wins, unlikely to be a coincidence. And there's a bank account that's used that shows you pretty clearly that money's coming in an unusual way that tips you off as to something untoward going on here.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on with this story, a lot of money being transferred through all these different places. So just try to follow along with me. I have a hard time, keeping up with it, but it's pretty detailed. So first, let's talk about what happened after the notorious Trump Tower meeting. So only 11 days after the June 9th meeting, an offshore company controlled by Agalarov wired more than $19.5 million to his account at a bank in New York.
Okay, let's pause there. I want to try to give as much context as I can as we go along. So Agalarov is a billionaire. He is very good friends with Vladimir Putin, and he got one of the highest awards that the Russian government gives, the Order of Honor, in 2013. So he's in the construction business. Him wiring money is not unusual. In fact, between 2006 and 2016, Silver Valley, one of the companies involved here, made nearly 200 transactions for $190 million. So when investigators looked at it, they saw that a lot of the money is perfectly normal, has to do with his construction business, etc. That is why the money that they're talking about stood out to them, because they're like, wait, this is not like the others. This is weird and different. So that's the context I wanted you guys to have for that.
Yeah, exactly. So the Agalarov family started spending $1.2 million, or sending $1.2 million from their bank in Russia to an account in New Jersey, controlled by the billionaire's son, who's a pop singer. Emin Agalarov is his name, and 2 of his friends. Bankers found it strange that activity in that checkings account surged after Trump's victory. Now, they found it strange because that account was created in the early 2000s. There was no activity in it until about 2015. There was like a small deposit in there. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there's $1.2 million coming into that account from Russia.
So I can give details on that too. So there was only one $200 deposit before this money came in. So it's obviously an account that isn't used very much at all. Just 13 days after the election, they throw $1.2 million into an account that only had $200. That's exactly the kind of thing that gets you a suspicious activity report in a bank. And investigators had asked for the bank to look into it as well. So now the two sets of timing that we have is 11 days after the Trump Tower meeting, a huge amount of money gets wired over to America, okay, through a route that takes them through the British Virgin Islands, which is a very common route to launder money, okay? And 13 days after Trump wins, more money comes in.
Right.
So it seemed like if you're a normal investigator, you look at that and you go, looks like there was some promise made to, and we'll deliver money for you if you can get us the meeting, and then we'll deliver more money for you if Trump actually wins and we're gonna get what we want. That's a very logical conclusion. They'll have to look more, of course, at all the transactions to connect those dots. But so far, the money trail certainly seems to indicate that.
Right. So let's talk a little more about what happened in New Jersey. So after the election, this is according to BuzzFeed News and their analysis of these records, that New Jersey account sent money to a company controlled by some dude named Ike Kavaledz, a longtime business associate of the Agalarovs. Now, Kavaled's company, meanwhile, had long funded a music business set up by the person who first proposed the meeting to the Trump camp, and that was Emin Agalarov's publicist, Rob Goldstone.
And there we are at Goldstone.
Yes.
So Kavaledz doesn't do music as his regular business. By the way, he was implicated in a money laundering scam to the tune of $1.4 billion. He set up 2,000 different corporations in the state of Delaware, and the Government Accountability Office believes that it was for money laundering purposes. So this guy who has, according to our government, a track record of, now to be fair, by the way, he was not charged, but the Government Accountability Office thought that this was for, and the reports clearly stated they thought it was for money laundering. Kavaled's defense was, it was a witch hunt. Does that sound familiar to you guys from anywhere? Okay, so this guy who our government believes is known for money laundering, and a lot of it, is connected to Rob Goldstone, who set up the meeting. But Kavaledz is getting the money from the Agalarovs. So it's obviously the Agalarovs are transferring the money eventually to Goldstone. It appears obvious, at least based on this money trail. Again, investigators will see what they can prove and not prove, right? And so what do the Agalarovs have to gain from a meeting with Donald Trump and then from Donald Trump winning? Goldstone says later that he felt that this was the worst thing that they made him do, but he got paid handsomely for it, so he probably doesn't feel that bad. And Kavaled's business normally doesn't have anything to do with music, so why is he giving all this money to a guy whose job is music?
Yeah, there's a lot of strange things going on. And by the way, this isn't the US government flagging things. These are bankers flagging things because they've noticed a bunch of strange behavior. Not only was this previously unused checking account now all of a sudden getting this huge wire transfer to the tune of 1.9 million, but there's also an issue of the round numbers. So apparently if a bank account gets huge wire transfers and the numbers are round numbers, then that's usually a red flag. But then there was a second red flag. Bankers also noticed that some of the transactions pass through multiple companies, a process that can indicate layering or a way to hide the original source of funds. So that's common when money's being laundered. So again, the bankers flagged it for that reason. And so we'll see what the investigation finds. But I want to skip ahead to graphic 68 because after the election, there was other activity that I think you should know about. So on November 21st, 2016, Emin Agalarov's checking account received $165,000 from an account based in Russia belonging to his family. The following day, the account sent $107,000 to Corsi International, a company run by Kavaledz, the longtime Agalarov associate who attended that Trump Tower meeting. Okay, so Kavaledz was an employee of the Agalarov's Crocus Group based in Russia. Why, bankers wondered, would the funds start in Russia, briefly make a pit stop in Emin Agalarov's New Jersey account, and finally be sent to Corsi International?
So I want to be clear about a couple of things. So it is 4 federal law enforcement officials that BuzzFeed got this story from. So law enforcement is working with the bankers. Second thing I want to make clear is at no point in this story does the money wind up in the hands of a Trump.
Right,
okay?
yeah.
So let's just be clear about that. What this seems to show, and this is not a court of law here, guys, but if you're a rational person making rational connections they are going through some great lengths to hide money that is being sent to someone who helped set up that Trump Tower meeting. So you don't send money through a couple of different shell companies or pass money from company to company to company and have it go through a post office box in the British Virgin Islands if you're not trying to hide it.
Right.
Okay.
So the final part of this that stood out to me, I think you should know about, is that whole Corsi International company, right? So they allegedly have this office in New York. And so investigators showed up. Oh no, not investigators, I'm sorry. No, bankers showed up. And they're like, let's go look at this, so-called office, let's see what's going on there. And guess what they found? When examiners began investigating this address, they discovered at least 8 other companies located there. So it's the same address, but 8 other companies associated with that address, all of them controlled by Kavalets, Amin Agalarov, or their associates. And when they went to check it out, there was no marking on it, no indication of a business being set up there. And the individual behind the door refused to open the door and refused to say anything or even take a business card from a reporter.
Yeah. So do I know exactly what the Agalarovs and maybe perhaps other people that they represent in Russia wanted out of that Trump Tower meeting? No, you'd have to have more details and more evidence about it. But does it seem clear on the record already that they were very excited to get that meeting with Trump and then very excited that Trump won? So excited that they were passing a lot of money to the people who helped set up that meeting. That part appears clear now. For whatever reason, if you're just gung-ho, no matter where you are on the political spectrum, in not believing that Russia had any interest in Trump at all, again, I gotta ask you, why do you think they passed all that money from all those different companies through the Virgin Islands to the people who set up the meeting if they weren't deeply interested in getting something out of that meeting? By the way, what was the essence of the meeting? It was, hey, we'll give you information on dirt on Hillary Clinton. That was what was promised by Rob Goldstone in the email. Now, some people say that no, they didn't deliver on that in that meeting. Keep that in mind, okay? But that was the premise. What did they want in return? That's the important part. They wanted the sanctions on Russian oligarchs lifted. That's the Magnitsky Act. That's what the Russian government officials talked about in that meeting. And by the way, Donald Trump Jr. at the end of the meeting said, look, we're not in power right now, but if we win, we'd like to see you again. And hey, lo and behold, there's another deposit that comes in after the election. So again, it doesn't go to the Trumps, but the people who set up that meeting, apparently they did a good job and the Russian oligarchs were pleased.
Yeah. And even if it has absolutely nothing to do with Trump, which of course it does, we have, Russian oligarchs laundering all sorts of money here in the United States. And so it's something that we should do something about.
Yeah, but look, we got law enforcement officials looking into it, so.
Yeah.
Tick, 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 tick. We told you it was the money laundering. All right, let's see what more comes of it. The TYT Plus app is now available on iOS and Android. Download to get more TYT content at tyt.com/app.